Well, staying in Canberra, and Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell is there today for this economic talk fest. 3 days, Andrew, I think around 30 or 40 people. You can't take your mobile phone in there, and it seems a pretty dry agenda. Now, I've never been a fan of meetings. What do we realistically expect, Andrew, to get out of this?
Yeah, I hate meetings as well. Maybe I could put my teenage kids in the cabinet room if you can't have a mobile phone in there. I was thinking, Steve, might not be a bad idea. You can't take a mobile into that room, and so it's hard to get a leak out of it. But I interviewed Daniel Mookie for Politics Now, and he said a lot of it was about skills. And he really spelled it out in this interview. The New South Wales Treasurer, who's representing all the state governments here, we don't have enough skilled construction workers here, Steve. It's as simple as that. We need to upskill our own people. Get some skilled migrants while not lifting the migration rate too high. And that is a massive thing in terms of productivity, because the more housing costs, the more infrastructure costs to build, the more that the supply and demand thing, meaning labourers are earning a lot more, tradies are earning a lot more, that is hurting our economy and it's hurting productivity. And I just want to know what the federal government's going to do about it, rather than sit around a table talking about things they might do about it. I mean, they've been in power three and a bit years now.
We've got lots of law graduates and lots of engineers. We don't actually have anyone to cut up the wood or put the tiles on the roof or actually construct the house. Lots of architects, there's plenty of plans, but no one to build anything.
This is crucial. This is critical. And, you think the government had a skills summit 3 years ago. Why didn't this get on top of it then? And it should be a massive priority. We'll hear about other things like budget sustainability and tax on other days. But my understanding is skills was a big part of it today. And I think this is quite pressing. And look, I asked Jim Chalmers on Sunday, well, you've been Treasurer for 3 years. Why do you need a roundtable to, and they're just business lobby groups and unions. You hear from them all the time as a Treasurer, I would have thought. I mean, you've got Allegra Spender and Ted O'Brien in there as well. You've got Matt Common and Ben Wyatt. You've got a few, CEOs, board members that can help out a bit. But I am, you can tell I am sceptical about it. They're not serious about any sort of brave tax reform. Anthony Albanese and Jim Chalmers have made that clear. They want to remove regulation. Well, it seems to me you could get that out of a couple of national cabinet meetings. You don't need this sort of forum. So, Jim Chalmers said in an interview with me, I'm not listening to grumps and cynics. I guess I'm sounding like a grump and a cynic, aren't I? If they come out of there with a whole bunch of things that are worthwhile, then I will, eat my words. But as things stand now, I can't see it. A lot of the things that sort of got leaked that they're talking about, like freezing the National Construction Code, getting rid of duplication of regulation, that's things that can sort of have been sorted out by now by a cabinet meeting, a national cabinet meeting. You don't need a whole lot of people to go into a room to tell you things which are common sense.
No, you don't. I mean, I wish they did have phones in there, because what I'd love to have seen is the CCTV footage when their phones started pinging about 3 hours ago, telling them that CSL, one of our most successful companies, just decided it's got to sack 3,000 people.
Yeah, there is a problem with business investment. There's not a problem with unemployment, but the argument is that's because the government and government-related sectors, things like the NDIS, have filled up the space. And I guess what you've got there is a lot of people working in those sectors who could be working in the trades or doing something else. The argument is that if you have too many in the sort of government and care sector, that robs you labour from that construction and other sectors where we have labour shortages. So it's kind of about balancing the economy. And one of the things you've got to do is you've got to just take the NDIS on. I mean, Anthony Albanese said yesterday, he said to me in an interview a month ago, we need to look at that. We need to do something about it. Well, they need to get cracking on it. And I'm not suggesting that everyone gets ripped off the NDIS. I'm just suggesting that we stop putting every 6-year-old boy on the NDIS. Draw a line in the sand now and change those eligibility requirements. You have an opportunity when you've got 94 seats and the opposition will probably agree with you to make some real change in that government spending area, and it's critical for the future of the country.
Yeah, I heard someone suggest today we actually need to, go back to the start of the NDIS and start again. Someone even said we might need to have a royal commission. I mean, God forbid we have another royal commission, but they need to sort it out. Now, Andrew Clennell's very good at risk and reward. You're the best at risk and reward. What's the risk to the Prime Minister and the Treasurer out of this if nothing of substantive nature comes from it?
Well, it won't come for some time because these things are a slow burn, but the risk is they're labelled a do-nothing government. And when it comes around to election time next time, that can hurt you. And I know that sounds crazy with the political situation, with the polls we have now. So that, in a sense, there's no short-term risk. I think that's what I'm telling you, Steve. The long-term risk is that you're seen to be a Prime Minister of no action who just wants to occupy the crease, and you're not making positive changes to advance Australia. That's the risk. Not sure about the reward.
I was really interested
come up
in
with some bold ideas and get on with some things.
Well, let's hope so. Look, I was really interested in that Daniel Mookie interview. I was sitting down in the car park listening to it on Sky News Radio. He talked about the tobacco excise. Now, I interviewed a former federal police copper last night who was talking about this guy from Australia who's sitting over there in Iraq making $1 billion out of sending illegal tobacco into Australia. He's making more money than, all the big drug dealers like Tony Mockbell and Carl Williams ever made. Of course they should be looking at bringing down the tobacco excise. I mean, there's people robbing IGA stores to steal cigarettes.
They've got to cut it. They've got to cut it. I mean, this is something years ago I would never advocate, right? I'm one of the worst, Steve. I'm an ex-smoker, so I think everyone should be able to give it up, and I think you should have the will to do that. But the point is, people are going to smoke, right? And it's like prohibition in the 20s, where there were just underground bars and they couldn't get tax. Well, they can't get enough tax out of tobacco now because there's this huge illegal market that's so big it couldn't possibly be policed. The state police don't have the resources to do it. But the health bureaucrats and lobbyists will put enormous pressure on you. And Mark Butler would put pressure on Jim Chalmers not to cut it. But there are two advantages to cutting it. You can stem the illegal trade, and you actually, ironically, even though you're cutting a tax, you end up with more tax when your budget's struggling. So I think there's a serious case for it. I think it should be in his next budget. And I was surprised when I asked Daniel Mookie that he said, no, we won't be raising this in the roundtable. We should be raising it. We are raising it in other forums. Well, I think it should be subject to the roundtable because day 3 is about budget sustainability, and this helps the budget. It helps law and order too. And ultimately, Jim Chalmers will have some responsibility for what's going on in terms of organised crime and illegal tobacco if he doesn't act. Because the Treasury, by dropping that number in the budget papers, his own department was sort of saying, look, we've got a problem here.
Well, if you want any proof, I mean, I wandered into a Lawson's store in Japan a month ago and I wasn't buying cigarettes, but there they were, 350 yen for a packet of cigarettes, which is $3.50, that cost about $35 here. I mean, no wonder no one's buying, regular cigarettes and they're all buying illegal ones.
Yeah, I think the most effective thing that happened, and we've lived through this, you and I, Steve, is the social shaming around smoking. It's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
And that was as effective as anything. Look, I think the tax was very effective too. Those two things coupled. But it seems to me the tax has gone too far and this underground industry's been allowed to creep in and flourish. And it's just, after a while, a tax rate can become counterproductive. It's as simple as that because then, people find underground ways to get around it.